Good evening. On behalf of the Kingston City School District and the Kingston City Board of Education, I again want to thank you for participating in this town hall. We're recording this meeting and we'll post it on the Kingston City School District YouTube channel tomorrow morning. I have a brief presentation and we'll try to answer questions you submit at the end of that presentation. You can send your questions at any time during this meeting. There's a good chance we won't get to every question that's posted, but we will be holding these town hall meetings frequently throughout this process and into the fall. Our next two meetings will be this Wednesday at 5:30 and Thursday at 11 in the morning. Questions and answers from our meeting today will be compiled into a running document that will also be posted on our website later this week. You can find that on our website under the reopening tab on the left side of the screen. Last Friday, the Board of Education decided to begin our school year in an all remote learning model. We know this is not how any of us would like to start our school year, but based on several factors that I will outline in my presentation and what we see around the country in schools, colleges, and universities, and even in professional athletics that have opened, we feel that this is the best way for us to ensure the safety of our students, faculty, staff, and community. As always, I'd like to start these town halls with an update of the state of community spread in the Kingston City School District. So as you can see on the left, there are 98 active cases in Ulster County, a population of about 178,000. So we have active cases of 98. And you can see on the right are the cases within the Kingston City School District attendance area. Once again, to start the 2021 school year, on my recommendation, the Kingston City School District Board of Education announced on Friday that all students will begin the year with remote learning starting on September 8th and continuing through October 13th. Many people ask, why are we starting by remote? There are several reasons. First of all, is to ensure that we have all the appropriate, proper, and enough stockpiles of PPE. While we've been working hard over the summer to stockpile everything we can, there are still several items that we're concerned about not having or not being able to obtain. We could possibly have them by September, but we're not sure, and we continue to work on that. We're also concerned with the training of our safety protocols and procedures with our faculty and staff. So we were required under the Department of Health guidelines to train our staff in many different areas surrounding safety and the COVID-19, and this will give us an opportunity to have more time with our teachers and our staff when they are actually here. As you know, this is summer, for us to have the safety protocols and procedures put in place and have our teachers and our staff trained. We also are required to do family and student training. Again, during this time, gives us the opportunity to put together our outreach and communication and work with our families and our students about the important parts of social distancing, hand washing, properly wearing a mask, and also on checking your own symptoms before coming to school in the morning to make sure that you're not coming in with any symptoms that could be COVID-19. It also gives the opportunity to the allocation of our human resources and determination of those who are seeking leave for health reasons. So we are a reasonable accommodation. So we're able to make sure that we have the faculty staff properly in place to best serve our students when they do come in person. Putting final school building preparations for our in-person program is an important piece that we will take this time to make sure that we do this properly. It will also give us the opportunity to observe and evaluate community spread of COVID-19, especially this time of year with the end of the summer travel and vacation months. Lastly, we'll be able to observe other trends regarding COVID-19, testing availability, and those kind of things. By Friday, August 21st, the Kingston City School District is required to have our remote learning plan to the New York State Education Department and posted on the Kingston City School District website. We're also required to have our testing and tracing protocols to the New York State Education Department and posted on the Kingston City School District website. We've been working collaboratively with the Ulster County Department of Health to have our testing and tracing protocols in place, and we are in very good shape there, and that will be out probably sooner than the 21st. Lastly, technology needs survey will be sent to families within the next day or so we can get a handle on how many parents need help getting access to the internet and how many students need devices so they can participate in our remote learning programs. So again, entering the school year with a hybrid plan, which is the original plan that we discussed earlier in the summer, will be set to begin on October 13th. And during these 5 weeks, 7 weeks, including the rest of the summer, we will be looking to improve that hybrid plan, look for possible areas to expand that hybrid plan to bring more students to school, and also teacher and safety training will continue. As I mentioned earlier, we will be having 2 more town halls this week. Next one will be Wednesday at 5:30 and then Thursday at 11 o'clock. So these will all be on our website, links to click on so you can participate if you want to. And now we will take questions. Okay, first question is, will the students have teachers that they have already had? Well, that could depend. I think if you're talking about will the student have the same teacher they had last year, especially if we're in the elementary area, that's most likely they would not. But I mean, if you're in the middle or the high school, there is some possibilities that the student could have the similar, teacher that they did have the year before. With the elementary school, most likely your student would not have the same teacher they had last year. Will New York State be waiving the PE requirement for schools? At this time, we have no indication that PE will be waived. We will continue to offer PE remotely as we did in the spring, and then in our hybrid model, obviously we'll offer it in person for our K-6 students and remotely for our secondary 7 through 12 students. How will students be expected to attend live classes if they are in childcare? A lot of parents won't be able to help their kids with schoolwork until they get home from work. Well, again, our remote learning plan will come out this Friday, and I think there will be opportunities for parents and students to learn both live and later on. So I think we're trying to make accommodations for everyone who's involved, every student, every parent, in every situation. I have 2 children in the Kingston City School District. Both will need Chromebooks since they will now be attending a daycare program and have to do their virtual learning from there, and we have at home is 1 desktop. All we have at home is 1 desktop. Will the district ensure my household be able to receive 2 computers in a timely manner? We're working to make sure every student, that's why we're putting that survey out this week, so we make sure that every student who needs help getting access to the internet and or a device will get that. Again, we worked very hard in the spring to do that, and we're going to try to do a better job this year or during the fall. So we are, again, I encourage everyone to respond to that survey so we have a really good handle on who needs technology and who doesn't. I also, just for a little editorial, I guess, and I also want to encourage anyone who still has a Kingston City School District Chromebook to please return it. We have about 400 or 300 Chromebooks that are now still outstanding, and we would like to get them back. So if you do have a student at home who has a Chromebook and it comes time for school, we will not be issuing another Chromebook, but we would like them back so we could reprogram them, make them up to date, and repair them if necessary. It is my understanding that all students with IEPs will be attending in person regardless of grade level. If I opt my child out of that and go with remote learning, will she still be in a special education class, or will she be in a remote regular ed setting? She's currently in a 12-1-1. A lot of questions still surrounding our students with disabilities and their programs, but I will say that right now, if your student has an IEP and they are in a 12-1-1 program or any program that requires an IEP for one of our students with disabilities, they will not be put in a regular ed class. They will be placed in the proper placement and have the proper instruction, and we will follow the student's individual education plan. Is the school really going to open in October, right at the start of flu season, and then Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays with family get-together? It seems like a disaster waiting to happen. Well, actually, that's a pretty good question, because a lot of people ask who's in charge and certain things, and a lot of times I tell people the virus is in charge. We are going to spend these 5 weeks shoring up our safety protocols, making sure we do the proper training, making sure our facilities are prepared and ready for students to arrive. And we are also, as I said, we're going to be watching what's going on with our community and the community spread. Our plan is around week 4 to have meetings with parents and teachers and administrators and talk about what we see in our community and see if this is something that we need to extend, or are we ready to go back, and does all the metrics tell us we can. Is there a plan in place for the loss of a student or teacher due to COVID? Please describe how that trauma may be handled by the district. Well, we have plans in place for the loss of a student or a teacher, regardless of the situation. We have crisis teams in every building. We have a district crisis team who are highly trained and actually sought after by other districts to assist them when they have untimely passings. I mean, it's one of the worst things that we can think about happening, whether it's COVID-19 or other reasons. But we have a director of safety and prevention who's highly trained and a team that works with him. We have highly qualified social workers and school counselors who have created really fantastic teams for our students and their families to reach out to in the case of any tragedy, whether it's COVID-19 or otherwise. Will the beginning of the year superintendent conference days be held in person or virtual? They will be held, the beginning of the year superintendent's conference days right now will be held with the teachers in their buildings, but for the most part, they will be virtual. So they'll be in their buildings, in their classrooms, working with their computer via Teams, and have that professional development and those trainings delivered to them in that manner. We won't be bringing large groups of people into an auditorium or anything of that nature. When will we know which teachers our children have, and will we find out anything about schedules before school starts so we can plan? At the elementary level, you should know that any day now, that those have all been set. Teachers have their list of students. So at the elementary, you should know that any day now, and then say the high school schedules, probably within a week or so, we'll have those straightened out and have those to everyone. How will grading be handled during initial remote instruction? Well, the details of that are being worked out, but the overall answer to that is it's going to be handled very similarly to how it would be if we were in person. We'll be using, the same assessments. We'll be using the same. The teachers will be doing what they do, which is work with students and give them grades based on their achievement and the areas that they need improvement on. So the grading will be very similar to what it was prior to COVID-19. In the spring, we did change the grading program, but that was for many reasons, including just how quickly that had to happen and our inability to really get students ready to go onto a remote plan. But we're ready this year, and we're going to keep our grading very, very close to what it was during the regular school year. How fast would a transition between virtual and hybrid be in the current plans? Well, we think we can happen pretty quickly. I think either way, there's going to be stumbling blocks. If we went from virtual to hybrid or hybrid to all remote, both of those would be very difficult, transitions. But we think we're prepared. We've created on-ramps and off-ramps to make sure that we can do this as smoothly as possible. So we're still working on the details of that plan as well. But I think we pretty much have that covered, and we'll be able to make a pretty smooth transition. As smooth as it can be in the circumstance, especially we're making sure that it's smooth for our students. Will district students who attend BOCES be transported, or will they remain virtual? The Ulster BOCES will be making their final plan as far as how they're going to deliver education in Ulster BOCES. I believe Dr. Corey, who's the superintendent there, is making his announcements tonight in his town hall tonight. So we're expecting to have answers on that by tomorrow as an overall plan. So we're going to wait to see what Dr. Corey has to say, and then we'll adjust based on BOCES program. You were quoted as saying, "We understand there is nothing that can take the place of a teacher standing in the classroom with their students, and with social distancing guidelines not going away anytime soon, what is the plan to phase 7th through 12th graders back into crucial in-person learning?" Yeah, the plan really is for us to continue to, you're right about social distance might not be going away anytime soon. We are hoping for, a continue numbers in Ulster County to drop around COVID-19, giving us maybe some more flexibility, but we're also continuing to look at, as we go through this. This is a living document, our plan. This is going to, we're going to look for changes where we find things that we could do better. We'll do better. When we find things that we do differently, we'll do them differently. When we find spaces maybe in our community that we can use to expand the number of students who we're bringing into in-person classrooms, we're going to do that. So we're actively investigating several spaces right now that could possibly work to help us bring students, more students in. Whether what grade level would go to those areas, we're not sure yet, but we think that we're covering a lot of bases, looking for other locations. As you said, social distancing. With social distancing, the number of students we can bring in is limited by the space that we have. But if we can gain more space in some other areas in our community, we'll be able to bring more students to school. Is it correct that UPK programs that are located in private daycares and child care centers will be in person? If so, how's the district going to ensure that those programs are following the safety guidelines, social distancing, masks, reduced amounts of students in classrooms, etc.? Yes, they're under a different license and they can run their daycare, and if they want to be running their daycare. So but they are under the the regulations set forth by the New York State Department of Health and the New York State Education Department. During the regular school year, they're not necessarily, but during this time, during this state of emergency, they are. So it's our responsibility, along with the responsibility of the state, to ensure that they follow the rules, and they'll be audited and such to make sure that they are. I've already met with some of our UPK providers. They understand their responsibilities and they take it seriously. I don't have a concern that they would try to put anyone, especially our students, in danger. Any preliminary thoughts of how remote model will work for GW pre-K? Thank you. Well, again, I think the remote program is going to work we're going to try to keep it as close to what the students would be doing in their groupings, at least, with their program. Montessori obviously doesn't lend itself that greatly to a remote setting, but I have faith in our teachers and Ms. Lobianco to put together a plan that would help really keep the spirit of our Montessori program in place, even during this short term of remote learning. What will the elementary hours for online learning be like? That's still in development. Again, we have to have this remote learning plan in place by Friday. I met with Dr. Felicello, who's the assistant superintendent for elementary education. She's met with her principals multiple times and meeting with them again tomorrow to try to finalize exactly what the hours will look like. So that will be available on Friday when we post on our website the remote learning plan. So that's when we'll have those kind of details. How will Chromebooks be distributed now that everyone is starting remotely? Will every 7-12 student be receiving one, or will it now be based on need, or one per family? As I said to the previous question, was similar to this. We're putting out a survey that will most likely go out tomorrow, and we're asking people to let us know what they need so we can distribute the Chromebooks to every student who needs it. We're also asking questions about your accessibility to the internet, so we can help in those areas as well. That survey is going to help us to make sure that we can give students what they need to continue learning in this remote environment for this period of time. What is the plan for testing and tracing for the school-age crisis daycares that are now opening for students that will be attending? Again, the Department of Health is in charge of testing and tracing. It's not something the school district's in charge of. Our testing and tracing plan will be posted on our website by Friday, but really it is a regional program, a regional plan that the Department of Health has developed in conjunction with all the school districts in Ulster County. So that, again, the Department of Health is in charge of all tracing and all testing and tracing in Ulster County. So we'll be putting our protocols in place that really will rely heavily on Department of Health coming in and helping us take care of both testing and tracing. Will vaccination against COVID-19 be mandatory for in-person attendance when a safe and effective vaccine is available? That's not something I can mandate. That's something a little above me, being able to mandate a vaccine. Could the state mandate it like they do with several other vaccinations? Yes, they could. But at this point, that wouldn't be something that's necessarily within the authority of the school district to mandate a vaccination. How can Healthy Kids, an after-school program, presently have childcare in certain schools, but you can't open? Well, there's no programs going on in any of our schools right now. How can parents work to support our children if the children are home all day and need assistance with schoolwork? Yeah, that's, again, one of the things that we're really working on in our remote learning plan is making sure that we have daily access to our teachers, that our teachers are communicating with you as a parent and are actively live interacting with our students every day. So we want to make sure that communication piece is going to be very important. Communications and relationships are going to be the things we need to build for this period of time. So we also want to provide opportunities for parents to meet with teachers, talk to teachers about their issues, as far as whether it's a simple technical issue with the Chromebook or with Teams, or whether it's something about the curriculum. So we are, in putting our remote learning plan together, we're creating flexibility and time for our teachers to have those conversations with you and to make sure that they are interacting daily, live with your students. I have 4 children in my home and we are essential workers. Although I like the idea of some live interaction, I'm concerned about the amount of work our kids will have and them having to share technology. How will you address this? Yeah, that's a concern. It's a concern we don't want students spending 10, 11 hours on their computer every day. We're trying to develop our plan in a way that is flexible enough for parents and flexible enough for students, but also provides that what we think really is a requirement and a non-negotiable, which is the interaction that's live between the student and the teacher, as well as the opportunity for the teacher to operate or to communicate live with you as a parent. So our plan is addressing that. We don't want to limit ourselves where students are going to lose access because of some issue that they weren't on at that time. But again, putting our plan together so it's flexible, that there's plenty of opportunity for communication with parents and plenty of opportunity for live engagement with students in as close to what could be a class as possible. I'm really relieved about the online start. That said, I'm very concerned about kids pre-K through 12 being effectively chained to their computers for online schooling in the spring. There was a 2-hour suggested online time limit for my 2nd grader given by the teachers. This worked great for us. Could you please talk more about the online time limits for all grades? Back to the answer to the last question. I mean, these are part of our remote learning plan. This is part of our discussion of how are we going to make that balance, right? We're looking for a balance between making sure that your student gets what they need and gets that interaction with their teacher, but also the balance that they're not chained, as you said, to their computer. So that's being worked through. Again, we're trying to strike that balance, but making sure that we deliver everything that the student needs during this remote period. My elementary age child will start school remotely with her normal classroom teacher. If we return to the hybrid model at some point and I deem it still unsafe to send her, she will switch to a different teacher for remote instruction, correct? Yes, that is correct. most likely you would not be keeping that teacher if you switch to all remote. That teacher would then have their students in front of them. So yes, if students who choose to stay remote after we move to the hybrid will most likely not be with their regular classroom teacher. Once the school year starts, can individual teachers reach out to their students and families to see exactly which children plan to return to school if it reopens? I'm sure my families will continue to stay remote. These exact numbers will help better plan for reopening. Those choosing to stay remote could possibly be taught by those teaching with special circumstances. Yes, that's part of our, it's part of things we've been thinking about all the way through this, is trying to find out who would be staying home and who would be coming to school. That being said, we also need to plan that people's circumstances change. Today, someone might say, my student is definitely staying home remote, they won't be attending in person. And then maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the road, they change their mind. We don't want to create situations where we don't have on-ramps and off-ramps for our students and their families. So we don't want to create a classroom that would exclude a student who maybe is saying they're going to stay online, but then there's a change and they want to come into school. Same thing with transportation. So we're trying to really put a plan together that is prepared for every student who's eligible for in-person to have a space in-person classroom, and every student who's eligible for transportation have a space on a bus to get them to school. Would it be considered for a teaching assistant to go to a student's home for ELA class, working one-on-one with students with reading comprehension and sight words? Well, I think there's a lot of different conversation about what we can do in person. We know that there are certain areas where, well, there's all areas where in-person is better, but there's certain areas where in-person is almost imperative for delivery. So we're working on how we could possibly manage that, and also keep our faculty and the parents of the student and students safe. So those are things that we're working on, and those are plans that will come out end of the week. When children do go to school in person, if they have an elevated temp when they arrive at school after they get off the bus and the bus has left, what happens to the child? Thank you. Well, what happens to the child is we said we have a protocol in place right now. They would come off the bus. They'd have the temperature taken. If that temperature is elevated, they would be moved to our room where they'd be isolated while the nurse did an evaluation. Parents would be called. If we did think that this was a COVID-19 situation, the parents would be called, and so would the Ulster County Department of Health. We would then again begin that contact tracing piece to see what students were on that bus with that child, to make sure that they would be quarantined for the time being while we waited for more guidance from the Department of Health, possible testing, and then once we get the results from tests and/or 14 days, whichever comes first, all of those students would be able to come back at that time. But yes, there's a protocol in place. And it unfortunately does involve removing students from school for a period of time, but those are the things we have to do to keep everyone safe. A lot of parents that I have spoken with do not know the difference between remote learning and virtual learning. Will learning be different than it was from March through June? That's a good point. I think we use those two terms we kind of interchangeably, but they're really not. You're right. Remote learning and virtual learning. Our plan is to have a mixture of live and then some recorded lessons for students who, for some reason, can't view that lesson, combined with the opportunity to have time to meet and talk with their teachers, so if they did miss something. But we're encouraging our students to participate in our live classes that we're going to have in our remote learning plan, and we really want to see that that live interaction as much as possible. But again, we need to have flexibility there. So I hope that answered your question. When and how can parents file to keep their kids home to continue distance learning? Right now, we're staying in remote. So as we get into this process, we're going to develop, the plan for parents letting us know if they're going to stay in remote, so we can have those numbers and assign teachers to those students. But that will happen throughout the next few weeks and into the fall. I'm a big believer of having asynchronous as well as synchronous learning during this period of online schooling. Could you please talk more about how teachers will use these methods in all grades? Well, I agree. I think that's really going to be part of what our remote learning plan is. It's going to be asynchronous and synchronous learning for our students. As far as how how the teachers are going to use these methods in all grades, that'll be really part of our remote learning plan and part of each teacher's classroom and how they decide to conduct that part of their lesson, those part of their lessons. So again, look for the remote learning plan on Friday. I think you'll get more details from that, but we agree. Asynchronous and synchronous together are where we're going to have to go as long as we stay in the remote. Can you touch base on what will be happening for our special education students? Some children cannot learn virtually and need an in-person learning. What is the option for them? Is there any? Right now, our plan is to put together our remote learning plan for all students. We are looking at and working with our students with disabilities and our parents and families and our special education department as well to see what are the options and how can we provide some in-person programming for our students with disabilities. We know this is a concern of many of the families, and we've been working on this. We're also working with our outside providers to see if they are open, are they going virtual, are they going remote. So we're putting all that together, and again, that'll be something that we'll have ready by Friday. Have or will teachers be trained on effective teaching methods for remote learning? Well, they have. Our teachers have had a lot of training in remote learning, but they're going to have more. Again, this is part of a really larger program for how we can get ready not only for remote learning right now, but anytime remote learning needs to be used in the future. So yes, we've had trainings, but we're going to have more trainings. We as a administrative team are even also undergoing trainings to make sure that we know everything we need to know about effectively working in a remote environment. So yes, there's definitely going to be more training for our teachers and how they can best reach our students using remote models. Has Governor Cuomo relaxed the learning requirements for New York State students? No, there's been no relaxation of the standards. That wouldn't come from the governor, that would come from the state education department, but we have no indication that they're going to lower the standards or relax any of the requirements for school districts. Last year, you probably all remember the Regents exams were waived for the year and the 3-3 testing was waived for the year. We have no indication that that's happening this year. So at this point, as far as we're concerned, we're teaching, our high school teachers are teaching as if there's a Regents exam at the end of the year, and we're following the New York State curriculum as required. Will teachers be teaching from the schools during remote learning? Yes, teachers will be teaching from their classroom during the remote learning. How can the school district assure each student has the appropriate technology to be welcomed into synchronous instruction? iPhones, Xboxes, iPads are not appropriate for synchronous instruction. In March 2020, we were denied a Chromebook because we had an iPhone. An iPhone screen is way too small for synchronous instruction, especially in kindergarten. Pre-COVID, every student was invited into their teacher's classroom. Every student should be invited into the distance learning environment by being issued a Chromebook. Yeah, but that's several questions so far on that Chromebook. Again, we're putting out a survey. We want to know. I understand, in the spring, we were, it was a last minute thing. We wanted to get as many Chromebooks into the hands of as many people as students as possible. And if anybody had any device whatsoever, we wanted them to use that so we could do what we needed to do. We've had a little more time to plan here. We still have supply chain issues around some of our technology, but we're working to get Chromebooks in the hands of every student who needs one. And I encourage you and tell your neighbors or anyone else to fill out the survey that's coming out, so we will know exactly how many students need this. And if you don't need it, I again encourage you, please let us know you don't need that so we can make sure people who do need it have it. And lastly, I'll repeat again, if for some reason your student has a Kingston City School District Chromebook still in your house, please return it to any one of our school buildings so we can update it, repair it if necessary, and then issue it back out. In prep for remote learning, Will the school advise what homeschool supplies are needed in advance? Yes. We'll work on exactly, and that's teachers do that. They're working exactly what our students will need, and we'll work with their teachers to let them know the things that we believe they'll need working in a remote environment. Will special education students at KHS be rotating or staying in one classroom all day? As of right now, all our students will be on remote instruction. In the plan that opens on October 13th, our plan is to have our special education students at KHS be in their, in the building, but we are working on exactly how they would rotate through the day that would keep them as safe as possible and keep them in a cohort as much as possible. My daughter will be going into 4th grade. Will bus transportation be provided as we are not in walking distance to the middle school? That's a great question, because when we move students from one building to the next out of their home building, their transportation, they may be a walker if you go to one school, but if you go to a different building, you're not a walker anymore. So that's a really good question. Yes. So we are rewriting our plans for transportation, refilling our buses to make sure that students who were walkers for one building that now are going to a building that's further away from their home are getting their bus transportation. So that is part of our plan. Any student who's eligible for transportation based on the building that they will be in attendance this fall will receive transportation. Will musical instrument lessons still occur? Yeah, we did remote learning musical instrument lessons last year. We plan on doing that again this year. When we come into the live, it's going to be a little more complicated. Again, we have issues with numbers of students who can be around for that. So the music department will be working on that. But right now, remote instrument lessons will continue. Will there be options for students to eat outside given the potential of aerosolized spread while they are seated without masks? If their answers are school specific, when will we hear what the details are for our school? That's a good question too, because the answer is school specific. Given based on space, based on the area closest to the cafeteria, and it's also going to be based on weather and judgment of our building principals and our teachers. So we're going to encourage in good weather. We've always encouraged PE. We've had school picnics. We do those things outside, so we can do that. But again, I'm going to leave that to each individual principal to decide, and I'm sure they'll be making those decisions prior to when school starts. Will children with an IEP in school outside of the district still be able to start school on time with busing? Their school has been open and ran all summer. Okay, so there's several different out of district placement schools that we partner with where we send our students. So depending if they're open or if they're not open, so those are things we're working on right now. But if they are open, we are going to work with you. And if you are looking to send your student to that program, we'll work with you and that program to ensure that the student gets there and that they have transportation. Thank you for what you are doing to plan a safe school year. Are you considering using the closed elementary schools to increase access in in-person learning for everyone? How realistic is doing this? During I guess I'm trying to wonder exactly what your question is. For in-person learning, we don't have any open or closed elementary schools. I'm sorry, something popped up on my computer, some sort of update. It's okay, went away. So we don't have any closed elementary schools. We did close 4 elementary schools, but we no longer. Obviously, I'm sitting in one of them. One of them is now an administrative building and a pre-K center, and the other 3 are in use in other ways. Anna Devine is rented by BOCES and filled with their programs. Xena no longer belongs to the district, and you all know Sophie Finn is now the Ulster County Kingston campus. So all the buildings we have are the 10 that we have. So that's how we're planning our program moving forward. Has Microsoft Teams been modified so that teachers can see all students at the same time instead of just a handful? Yes. So over the summer, we had a training on this morning. Over the summer, Teams actually has been hard at work, making themselves more friendly towards schools, making it really more about teaching to a class rather than a business application. We do have now the ability to have almost 49 students on the screen at the same time. Not that any teacher would have 49 students at the same time, but so we can see, teachers will be able to see all of their students when they're teaching live. And they also have the opportunity to put them in, so they won't be in the squares that you see them now. They'll be in what looks like seated in a classroom. And it's if anybody watches basketball and you watch the NBA games, you look in the background, you see how the fans are sitting. That is Microsoft Teams. So that is how our classrooms will look when we open up in September. What is the plan to be sure the daycare programs are as stringent with their safety requirements as the schools are attempting to be? Again, someone asked a similar question earlier. We've reviewed the safety requirements. Our partners, our community-based partners for pre-K and daycare are aware of those requirements. We've never had, I have no reason to believe they would do anything to endanger their students or our students. But we are, we're responsible for working with them, and also, again, the state education department has made it clear what the regulations are. I know they know what they are. I know they'll follow them, and we will work with them to make sure that they can do that. Will the districts be requiring all students and staff to be tested for COVID before in-person learning begins? We will not be requiring everyone to be tested prior to entering into school. We are doing our best to make as many tests available as we can, especially to our faculty and staff before we start. Really, the county doesn't have the capacity to test every student in the Kingston City School District, I shouldn't say the Kingston City School, in Ulster County. So in all of our school districts in Ulster County, they wouldn't have the capacity to test every single teacher and every single student. So no, I guess the answer to that question is right now we are not requiring COVID-19 tests for our students or our teachers. Will the parents' email be able to attach to their children's Microsoft Team account so that they will receive alerts about assignments and notifications? That's a good question, and I can't answer it, so I'm going to make sure that Miss Siri writes it down so I can ask our tech people that question. I don't know that answer. How will IEPs be evaluated and adjusted for remote learning? The needs might be different from when they plan for in-school. That's true. And again, I want you to reach out to our special education department to make sure that your student, if they have an IEP that you feel is not appropriate because of remote learning, to work with them to make the adjustments that you and the team feel is necessary. Will there be an updated plan for meal distribution where we can expect this? When can we expect to see this? Yes, there will be an updated plan for meal distribution. So we're working on that now. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll have that out to everyone. But there's going to be a new plan for meal distribution for the fall. Yes, so there will be. Upon the return to school, will the district hybrid plan be remaining the same or will it be changing? I think the heart of it will remain the same. As I said to a previous question, we're going to continue to work. If we can do something better, we're not going to, we're not going to sit with this and say, oh, this is our plan, so we're sticking with it, even though this might work better, or maybe we have this opportunity to expand the number of students who come into our school building. So the heart of it will remain the same. Our K through 6 in-person full-time will remain the same, but there could be an expansion based on things that change over the next few weeks. Is the school district able to work with Spectrum or other internet providers to ensure all kids have internet service, and how is the digital divide being addressed? So last year we were very successful working with Spectrum to get students who needed internet access access to the Wi-Fi so they could do the remote learning. Again, I'm encouraging people to let us know, what you need and where you are. For parents who don't have access to the internet, pick up the phone, call your school, let your principals know, and they're there. They'll keep track of this so we can know for sure, because it's very difficult to know for sure exactly who does and does not have internet. We can put out surveys, but a lot of people don't always respond to surveys. So if there is an issue, and tell your neighbors, to have them call the school, so we can actually pinpoint students who need access. We have purchased several, more than 100 Wi-Fi hotspots that we're going to move out into communities to ensure that we can expand Wi-Fi accessibility. We don't know or think that we'll have another issue or another deal like we have with Spectrum coming into the fall as we did in the spring. So we're trying to do everything we can, for at least from a district standpoint, to expand that access and close that digital divide that you mentioned. Do we have the option to remote learn all year if not satisfied with the measures in place? As of right now, our guidance from the State Education Department and Department of Health is students who want to remain on remote for the rest of the year can do that, and we will provide education to those students. In the last town hall, it was stated that the COVID plan is written so that students do not use masks if they are 6 feet distance. Will that change to mandatory mask at all times except during lunch? Yeah, actually, this was something that we are changing in the current plan. Someone asked earlier if the plan would change at all. This is one of the things we're changing. The current plan does state that students will wear masks only when they are not socially distanced, and they could take their masks off other times. That will be changed. Our new plan will read that students will be wearing masks at all times except for during lunches and during mask breaks, which we will build into the schedule when live instruction begins in October. Do you know when special permission requests will be addressed? Actually, I do. They're being addressed now, so you should hear any day now. I know Mr. Verge and his team were working on that last week, and they're moving forward with their special permission requests, so you should know that within the next couple of days. Very often, there are students in a classroom that need frequent redirection, sometimes physically. Often students leave the appropriate space in the classroom or the classroom itself without permission or various reasons. How will this be addressed? How will both the teacher and all the students in the classroom stay safe in these situations? Well, that's a good question, because at the end of the day, we are in many areas. We're working with children, and sometimes there is the impulse to not be staying in your chair or not be 6 feet away. These are some of our concerns that led us to look at not opening till October and keeping the remote, so we can continue to work on our training, continue to work on our communication with parents, and continue to be able to address these and have plans in place to address exactly the type of things that you're saying. Is it going to happen in the classroom? Of course it's going to happen in the classroom. We have to make sure we have protocols and procedures in place, and our teachers and our administrators are well trained in these procedures and protocols to ensure that all the students will be safe and we take care of any issue of this nature. Is there a chance that our 7 to 12 students will eventually receive in-person instruction during the 2021 school year? Well, we really want them to. I mean, that's not. We don't want any of our students not to have live instruction this year. So we are actively looking for more space. We are actively rethinking our plans, continuing to look at our numbers and look at what we can do differently to bring more students into school, especially I understand our 7 through 12 students being remote for an entire year is not ideal, and we don't want to see that happen. Again, we're hopeful that something will happen as far as the virus is concerned that will allow us to reopen a very different way later in the year. But until then, we're going to continue to look for more space. We're going to continue to see how we can change our plan to have some online or some in-person interaction for our 7 to 12 students. I think it's disappointing in a lot of ways, and regardless of in-person instruction or not, it's disappointing to, I think, especially our upperclassmen, that no matter how we cut it, this year is not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as it would have been 2 years ago when we were not in this state of emergency. live interaction with their teachers will be a plus, but it's going to be far different from what they're used to in Kingston High School with activities and after-school activities and sports and those things that just right now we're highly doubtful that will happen. Will services such as speech, OT, and PT be offered in accordance with the student's IEP? Absolutely. That's our responsibility. Student's IEP is our responsibility to implement properly, and we will put everything in place that we have to make that happen. Will our children be able to meet their teacher virtually prior to the start of the school year? We're working on several different plans today around this. This was a big part of our discussion in our administrative team today of how we could find a way for our teachers and our students to meet, whether it be virtually or briefly in person in some way. So that will be part of our remote learning plan. That'll be a communication that's come out building by building from your principals. So we're going to work with our building principals and try to develop some opportunity for our students to see and actually meet with our teachers, whether it's virtually or maybe a very brief in-person meeting. Not all parents are working from home or out of work. Can you please schedule these meetings in the evening so people can attend? We've scheduled, so what we've been doing is scheduling them different times of the day throughout. So this is our fourth. We've had one at 11, one at 4, one at 6. We're back at 4. We'll be back at 5:30 tomorrow and 11 again on Thursday. So we're really trying to put them at different times of the day because different people do work different shifts and different people are free in different areas. Actually, our highest number of people participating was a little bit over 800 was on an 11 o'clock meeting in the morning. So, we're trying to just make sure that we hit several different times a day so as many people can adjust according to their work schedules, their family schedules, whatever's necessary. So we're kind of going many different times on different days. Is there a possibility that evening teachers will be available? Right now, that's not part of our plan. We have had some discussion about night school at the high school, which was something that runs during our regular school year and how that could possibly operate. But right now, as far as evening teachers, we haven't planned that. That doesn't mean it's off the table or something we can't discuss, but that has not been part of our planning. Can you tell us when schedules will be issued for 7th graders and who determine what language, etc. they are taking? What about band? Then again, those are questions for your building principal. I know other than when the schedules will come out, I know they're finishing up that process in the next day or so, as far as, as part of our remote learning plan is having this schedule in place properly. So then the principals can communicate the schedules to your students. So it should be relatively soon. But the other questions as far as language and band would be questions for your principal, and I would reach out to the school for those answers. What will this year's calendar look like? Holidays and breaks? Well, right now, we're doing our best to keep our calendar to the calendar that was adopted by the board back in June. Is that going to happen? I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of that will depend on how things move forward with, with COVID-19 and any possible change in our trajectory around community spread. But right now, our plan is to stick with our calendar that is currently posted on our website that was passed by the Board of Education back in June. If there has to be adjustments to that for whatever reason, we're going to do everything we can to give a lot of lead time for parents and for our faculty and students to let them know that we have to make these changes. But we are hoping to keep to the calendar that we've set back in June. What will be the determining factors to returning? Numbers seem low now. Will numbers need to be 0 cases or vaccine in order to open back up? No, I don't think that's necessary, and I agree with you. I think the numbers, I showed them in my first screen, are very low right now, and I think they're maybe the lowest we've had here in Ulster County as of Sunday, with only 98 cases. But what we're really focused on is making sure that we have everything possible in place to make sure that we are safe, no matter what the numbers are. Well, if the numbers are within the metrics that are allowed. So if we're in the metrics that are allowed to reopen, and we feel that we have the adequate training in place, adequate staffing in place, and that we are ready to safely receive your students, we're going to open. And I will say, believe me, we want to open. We want our students coming to school. This is not the conversation that I want to be having right now with you. So we're going to do everything we can to put those procedures in place and get our students to school come that 6th week in October. Most of the questions being answered are about safety and logistics. I would like to know what the district is doing to improve the quality of remote teaching and learning. Well, we did have a question about, I think, about quality of remote learning earlier when someone asked about training for our teachers, and I think that's part of it. First of all, you know, our teachers are highly qualified to teach the subject area that they are teaching. Teaching remotely obviously is a little bit different. It's a lot different, but there's you know, we are working with our teachers, and they did work this summer developing curriculum. They've been working very hard with the idea of the possibility of being remote, so they know they've been working on it, they've been preparing, and we're going to be providing training and updates and continuous professional development to help them improve, and we're going to ask them what are the things we need to provide for you, and then we're going to do our best to provide them so they can be as effective as possible. Does the district have a transition team, and is it made up of all parties in the district, administrators, teachers, and parents? Yeah, we have, well, a transition team, not necessarily that we have. We do have our usual, you know, groups. We have our secondary and our elementary groups, and we did not create a transition team per se, but one of the things we are going to do is right around week 4 in this situation, we're going to bring together groups of people, parents, teachers, administrators, and talk about where we are and what we think needs to happen in order for us to get to that 6th week, you know, that October 13th and open. So we want to evaluate, look at the landscape, look at our procedures, look at our protocols, make sure that everything is in place that makes everyone feel that we're safe and they're comfortable being there, and then put that, and then be able to make a decision about October 13th. So yeah, that's how we're working. But we have and really part of our reason we have these town halls is for that parent outreach and wanting hear your concerns and opinions. Will there be an open house or orientation for students to meet their teachers face to face so they have more of a personal start to the year? By way of example, drive-through, small group, etc. Yeah, that's similar to a question prior to this. We are working on that. You know, we're trying to find a way for at least our students to get some time to get to know their teacher one-on-one, parents some time to get to know that teacher one-on-one. So we'll be working on that, and we'll release that in the next few days. Is there any news on school sports? Unfortunately, no, there's no new news on school sports. We expect to have an announcement from the New York State High School Athletic Association in September, late in September, but given everything that's going on both here and across the state, I don't hold a lot of I don't hold out a lot of hope that we'll be seeing fall sports. Maybe there'll be some adjustments to schedules, but I'm not sure. But we have not heard anything new on school sports. Will the state exams be suspended for this year? We've had no indication that that's going to happen. We don't know. I mean, could that happen? Yes, it could happen, but we have not been given any indication that the Regents exams or the K3 testing or the 3-3 testing will be suspended at this point. So we've developed our curriculum, and our teachers are putting together lessons as if those assessments are going to happen. Okay, this is our last question for tonight. For parents that have to work during the day, will teachers be more flexible with students that can only log on at night? Part of our plan is working with teachers to see how we can best serve every student. So we're working to be flexible. As I stated earlier, we've been thinking about some opportunities for night school types of things, but there are a lot of concerns about that. I mean, probably several questions in this town hall alone that were similar to this. So we want to be flexible, but we also want to make sure that we're not having teachers teaching at 10 o'clock at night. So that's the asynchronous, synchronous lessons that we're planning. So we want to make sure there's live access to the teachers, but the students get what they need, even in a situation where maybe they can't get there for that 9:15 social studies class. We are working on that, and that will be part of our remote learning plan that is due on Friday. Okay, so just so everyone again knows, I want to repeat, we have another meeting tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:30. We'll have another town hall after that, Thursday at 11 o'clock. This meeting, will be posted on our Kingston City School District YouTube channel and our websites if you need to refer back, and we'll be compiling the questions and answers for you to look back at questions and answers. You know, we get hundreds of questions each of these town halls, and I know I don't always get to all of them, but we do our best to make sure we can compile them and try to get questions and answers, as many as we can, onto our website. It takes a little bit of time, but we try to get them all up there. So I want to thank you again for your participation, and be well.